Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I will actually do the first video about Age of Empires 4 on my channel, and since there is not a whole lot of information on Age of Empires 4 just public at the moment, really nothing, only that it exists, there's still something I would like to share with you, since on Reddit there was a survey about Age of Empires 4 and what people would like to see in it, and yeah, since there were like 400 to 500 people actually taking part, I think this seems to be quite representative for the community, what it really wants to see in such a game. Around 70% of the people who participated there were actually Age of Empires 2 players or fans of the whole franchise, so this yeah, should be of some interest to you over there. Okay, first of all, the basics is, well, it should be an historical base building strategy game. I think this is a common ground we can all agree on, and if there's anything changing with that, then I'm not sure if that would be too much Age of Empires anymore. And yeah, to the question why someone bought an Age game, first of all, was that it has an historical setting, it has base building, resource gathering, varied civs and units, and strategic gameplay. Also important for people were the facts that you can play alone or with friends, so having both single and multiplayer, exploring the game and its mechanics, and being able to be just creative within the game, so finding new play styles or even creating custom content in the editor for the community to enjoy. Modding. People in general think mods are quite important to enhance your experience in the game. Roughly 60% of the player base uses mods occasionally. Only 20% doesn't use any mods at all, so Age of Empires 4 definitely should have some support for modding, since this is an integral part of the community. Talk about the single player campaigns. By far the most important feature here, which was voted for, was historical accuracy, although this has to be taken with a grain of salt, because historical accuracy was never 100% in the Age series, and you should not really lower the amount of depth or fun you can have with the game, because it's more historically accurate that way. So, for example, in most real-time strategies, your units don't really need a life cycle. If it's a city management game, then this is different, but in real RTSs, you just create your villages, create your soldiers, and then they exist until they get killed off by something. So yeah, this is an example for making compromises with the historical accuracy. And the interesting thing about the single player campaigns is both dynamic and linear or story-driven campaigns were seen in a positive light. Linear designs were slightly more popular, but replayability should also be there. So this is really, I think, it could go into both directions and still be received well, because there are arguments for both sides. So, for example, having the ability to choose your own way through a campaign, having the ability to choose a mission on a map if you first want to do one or another, and maybe get bonuses from these missions, like StarCraft did it. I think this would also work in this setting. And something many people could agree upon, however, was the missions themselves should often have a sandbox style feel. So you can be creative there, you can choose your way how to play those, have multiple paths presented in front of you, and being able to choose and not only following that one path through the missions themselves. And also, following a certain character was always a core feature of the Age campaigns, and this was also met with a positive response in the survey. So people wanted to follow a certain hero, a certain character through their story from their perspective. Talking about new features in Age of Empires 4. There were a lot of it, but I'm just talking about the most popular ones. First of all, was actually the most voted for is a visual representation of upgrades. So we had this in some ways in Age of Mythology, where you had the armor and weapon upgrades actually showing on the units. This was something I think was dropped on Age 3, and it's not always easy to do that because some things just are not visible, but this is something that got requested a lot. Also, which I personally think is would be quite practical, is being able to see whether a building is currently busy or if it is standing idle. So if you have some barracks and then you maybe see some lights going on and off, or some people moving around inside of the building to see that someone is training there, or if not. So yeah, that's just it's nice to see visually, and also makes the game easier to play without dumbing down the mechanics. Also, proper matchmaking was suggested, so no need to create and search for lobbies, but just click one button and then you'll find a game. I mean, that does sound nice, doesn't it? Also, strangely enough, the weather system was fairly popular, so it was not specified if it should only be visual or also impacting gameplay, but yeah, this was also there. And core mechanics which should be very highly developed for the game to succeed were pathfinding, AI functionality, and multiplayer stability. I think this is mostly due to the experiences we had in Age of Empires 2, and understandable as this. Of course, those are really the bare minimum of functionalities a game should really have. And now about a little bit more controversial topic, the setting. So in this survey, ancient history and Middle Age were actually most popular, but I think it is not really likely that the game Age of Empires 4 will be in either ancient times or the Middle Age, because well, we already have Age of Empires 1 and Age of Empires 2, and this would cause some yeah, I think disharmony in the series itself. What I personally would think is most likely here, or which would make most sense, is just from the late 18th century on to the 20th century, so either 1918 or 1945, so either the First World War or Second World War as the end of the game. I think going with the World War I as the last age would be more sensible, since there are no super weapons like atomic bombs and such. Those are always really hard in the RTS to implement, and also to make sense and not be overpowered and not feel too weak. So basically keeping things at a reasonable level, keeping the power level somewhat that it just makes sense. Yeah, those are my 2 cents about this. Actually, it would be worth to talk about this setting in a more detailed way, because there are actually a lot more arguments than I could mention here, but we'll just go over to the next topic, which is the variety within the game. So against the trend of many recent RTS games, is the variety is wished to be quite high. What we have seen is more into the direction of StarCraft with 3 civilizations, or just a handful, and here people really wanted to see more than 10 civilizations at launch, and also 10 to 15 multiplayer maps. So this is, as I already mentioned earlier, the variety people want to see. They want to be able to choose what they can do there and not be really restricted by the game itself. And yeah, the last question here I would talk about is the content of possible DLC or expansion packs. So most popular were new campaigns and new civilizations and units to be DLC content. People would actually like to pay for this. What was, well, met with less enthusiasm were additional game modes or skins. Skins were particularly unpopular here. So yeah, this is basically following the same path the Age series had with their DLC so far. Also continue that path on Steam with the HD edition, and it has been quite successful this way, so I doubt that really changing this formula would really benefit anyone. And yeah, so this were all the, well, most important information you could get out of this survey, and I will also put a link to this into the description so you can check it yourself and see if the see all the other questions I have not talked here about. And yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to post them below. I'd be glad to discuss those with you. And we have reached the end of this video now, so I would like to thank you for watching and wish you a great day. This has been Alkalim. Goodbye.